Hello, junior squirrels. I've got my right here. I'm just gonna lay it across. Lay it across this way because I want y'all to see my way cool hoodie. Well, you can't even see it. Sweet Fanny Adams Theater in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. And I wish you could see the back of it if I think of it. Before I finish, I'll twirl around and show you the back. It's so cool. It's got one of those old-timey, looks like a great big tricycle that they used to ride. And it's a old-timey theater, not old, but it's been there for, shoot, as long as we've been going to see shows. They put on a little, like a variety show there. And it's real neat. If you've never been and you ever go to Gatlinburg, Tennessee, check out the Sweet Fanny Adams Theater. Okay, we're on the chapter, and I kept up for a while on which chapter was what. Let me just count right quick. This chapter is called Sheep Shearing, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 11, 12, 13. It's chapter number 14. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 more to go. So chapter 14 with 15 more to go. Okay, sheep shearing, and here's a little picture of the fleece that comes off the sheep, and that looks like the shearers, maybe. I don't know. Didn't really look like they would do that, but not sure. Anywho, let's read and find out. Now, the meadows and pastures were velvety with thick grass, and the weather was warm. It was time to shear the sheep. On a sunny morning, Pierre and Louis went with Almanzo near the pasture, and they drove the sheep down to the washing pens. The long pen ran from the grassy pasture into the clear, deep water of Trout River. It had 2 gates opening into the pasture, and between the gates a short fence ran to the water's edge. Pierre and Louis kept the flock from running away, while Almanzo took hold of a woolly sheep and pushed it through one gate. In the pen, Father and Lazy John caught hold of it. Then Almanzo pushed another one through, and Royal and French Joe caught it. The other sheep stared and bleated, and the 2 sheep struggled and kicked and yelled, but the men rubbed their wool full of brown, soft soap and dragged them into the deep water. There the sheep had to swim. The men stood waist deep in the swift water and held on to the sheep and scrubbed them well. I bet that was cold water, too. All the dirt came out of their wool and floated downstream with the soap suds. When the other sheep saw this, every one of them cried, "Bah, bah," and they all tried to run away. But Almanzo and Pierre and Louis ran yelling around the flock and brought it back again to the gate. As soon as the sheep was clean, the men made it swim around to the end of the dividing fence, and they boosted it up the bank onto the outer side of the pen. The poor sheep came out bleeding and dripping wet, but the sun soon dried it fluffy and white. And that's a good way to clean your wool before you even shear it off the sheep. Let's see. As fast as the men let go of one sheep, Almanzo pushed another into the pen, and they caught it and soaped it and dragged it into the river. So they just did that over and over again with each sheep. Washing sheep was fun for everybody but the sheep. I wouldn't think it was fun. The men splashed and shouted and laughed in the water, and the boys ran and shouted in the pasture. The The sun was warm on their backs, and the grass was cool under bare feet. And all their laughter was small in the wide, pleasant stillness of the green fields and meadows. One sheep butted John. He sat down in the river, and the water went over his head. Joe shouted, "Now, if you had soap in your wool, John, you'd be ready for shearing." When evening came, all the sheep were washed, clean and fluffy white. They scattered up the slope, nibbling the grass, and the pasture looked like a snowball bush in bloom. Next morning, John came before breakfast, and Father hurried Almanzo from the table. He took a wedge of apple pie and went out to the pasture. Smelling the clover and eating the spicy apples and flaky crusts in big mouthfuls, he licked his fingers, and then he rounded up the sheep and drove them across the dewy grass into the sheepfold in the south barn. Father had cleaned the sheepfold and built a platform across one end of it. He and Lazy John each caught a sheep and set it up on the platform and began cutting off its wool with long shears. The thick white mat of wool peeled back all in one piece, and the sheep was left in bare pink skin. And I bet that felt good to the sheep if it was warm outside. Let's see. With the last snick of the shears, the whole fleece fell on the platform, and the naked sheep jumped off it, yelling, "Bah!" All the other sheep yelled back at the sight, but already Father and John were shearing two more. Royal rolled the fleece tightly and tied it with twine, and Almanzo carried it upstairs and laid it on the loft floor. He ran upstairs and down again as fast as he could, but another fleece was always ready for him. Father and Lazy John were good sheep shearers. Their long shears snipped through the thick wool like lightning. They cut close to the sheep, but never cut its pink skin. That's important. You don't want to nick the sheep. This was a hard thing to do because Father's sheep were prize merinos. You ever heard of merino wool? I've used that a lot to knit and crochet with. Merinos have the finest wool, but their skin lies in deep wrinkles, and it's hard to get all the wool without cutting them. Almanzo was working fast, running upstairs with the fleeces. They were so heavy that he could carry only one at a time. He didn't mean to idle, but when he saw the tabby barn cat hurrying past with the mouse, he knew she was taking it to her new kittens. He ran after her, and far up under the eaves of the big barn, he found the little nest in the hay with 4 kittens in it. The tabby cat curled herself around them, loudly purring, and the black slits in her eyes widened and narrowed and widened again. The kittens' tiny pink mouths uttered teeny meows. Their naked little paws had wee white claws, and their eyes were shut. When Almanzo came back to the sheepfold, 6 fleeces were waiting, and Father spoke to him sternly. "Son," he said, "see to it you keep up with us after this." And there they are working. A lot of work shearing a sheep. I can't imagine trying to do it without cutting them and them squirming around. Let's see, the pages are stuck together. Come on, pages. Okay. "Yes, Father," Almanzo answered, hurrying, but he heard Lazy John say, "He can't do it. We'll be through before he is." Then Father laughed and said, "That's so, John. He can't keep up with us." Almanzo made up his mind that he'd show them. If he hurried fast enough, he could keep up. Before noon, he had caught up with Royal and had to wait while the fleece was tied. So he said, "You see, I can keep up with you." "Oh, no, you can't," said John. "We'll beat you. We'll be through before you are. Wait and see." Then they laughed at Almanzo. They were laughing when they heard the dinner horn. Father and John finished the sheep they were shearing and went to the house. Royal tied the last fleece and left it, and Almanzo still had to carry it upstairs. Now he understood what they meant, but he thought, I won't let them beat me. He found a short rope and tied it around the neck of a sheep that wasn't sheared. He led the sheep to the stairs, and then step by step he tugged and boosted her upward. She bleated all the way, but he got her into the loft. He tied her near the fleeces and gave her some hay to keep her quiet. Then he went to dinner. All that afternoon, Lazy John and Royal kept telling him to hurry or they'd beat him. Almanzo answered, No, you won't. I can keep up with you. Then they laughed at him. He snatched up every fleece as soon as Royal tied it, and hurried upstairs and ran down again. They laughed to see him hurrying, and they kept saying, Oh, no, you won't beat us. We'll be through first. Because they do the shearing, and he has to be after them to carry it up. That's why he hid that last sheep. Let's see. Just before chore time, Father and John raced to shear the last two sheep. Father beat. Almanzo ran with the fleece and was back before the last one was ready. Royal tied it, and then he said, We're all through, Almanzo. We beat you, we beat you. Royal and John burst into a great roar of laughter, and even Father laughed. Then Almanzo said, No, you haven't beat me. I've got a fleece upstairs that you haven't sheared yet. They stopped laughing, surprised. At the very minute, the sheep in the loft, hearing all the other sheep let out to pasture, cried, Bah! Almanzo shouted, There's the fleece. I've got it upstairs, and you haven't sheared it. I beat you, I beat you. John and Royal looked so funny that he couldn't stop laughing. Father roared with laughter. The joke's on you, John, Father shouted. He who laughs best who laughs last, is what he said. That was a cute chapter. And let's see if we missed any other pictures. I don't think so. Yeah. Or did I show? No, I showed you that one. No, I showed them all to you, so that was it. And the next one is called Cold Snap. So what I say, that was chapter 14 that we just read. Let me check one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yep, that was 14. Wish they had numbered the chapters. Okay, have a great day. Be sweet and don't be ugly. And Granny loves ya. Bye-bye.